Think for a moment about something you may have noticed recently. Perhaps it takes a little longer to recover from an illness than it used to. Perhaps your sleep is not as deep or as restful as it once was. Perhaps you've caught yourself wondering whether the changes you're experiencing are simply what everyone goes through, or whether there might be another way to navigate these decades. These observations are not signs of decline. They are signals, information from a body that has been living for half a century or more. A body that has accumulated wisdom along with years. What if much of what we assume about aging is based on a misunderstanding? What if the changes that appear in our 50s and beyond are not a random breakdown, but a predictable transition that can be understood, anticipated, and met with intelligence? This is not about reversing time or chasing youth. It is about understanding the architecture of human longevity so thoroughly that the later decades become not a problem to be solved, but a landscape to be explored. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The art of growing older. A calm exploration of longevity and vitality. There is a question that eventually arrives in every life. Sometimes quietly, sometimes with urgency. It comes on a morning when the joints feel stiffer than they did the year before, or when recovering from an illness takes a few days longer than expected, or when looking at photographs from 20 years ago, one notices how much has changed. The question is simply this: what does it mean to grow older well? This is not a new question. Humans have been asking it for thousands of years, across every culture and civilization. The answers have varied enormously, but certain patterns recur. Certain observations about how to maintain vitality through the decades appear again and again in the writings of physicians, philosophers, and ordinary people who lived long and died old. What follows is an exploration of those patterns, drawn from contemporary research and from the accumulated wisdom of those who have thought deeply about the art of growing older. The approach here is not one of prescription. There are no strict rules to follow, no mandatory checklists, no promises of dramatic transformation. Instead, what follows is a kind of map, a way of thinking about the terrain of the later decades that might help navigate them with greater ease and understanding. The goal is not to stop the clock, for that is not possible. The goal is to live well within whatever time we have. Part 1. Understanding the landscape of aging. Before considering what might be done to support vitality in the later decades, it is helpful to understand what actually happens as the years accumulate. Aging is not a single process, but many processes occurring simultaneously, at different rates, in different systems of the body. Some of these changes are visible. Others occur deep within cells and tissues, invisible to the eye, but gradually influencing how the body functions. The slowing of systems. One way to think about aging is as a gradual slowing of the body's regulatory systems. In youth, the body maintains a remarkable internal balance, temperature, blood sugar, hormone levels, and countless other factors remain within narrow ranges despite changing external conditions. This ability to maintain stability is one of the hallmarks of good health. With age, this regulatory capacity diminishes. The body becomes less efficient at cooling itself, which is why older individuals may be more susceptible to heat stress. Blood sugar levels may take longer to return to normal after a meal. Blood pressure becomes more variable and more difficult to control. These changes are not signs of failure, but simply reflections of systems that have been operating for many decades. The temperature regulation system offers a clear example. In younger bodies, when internal temperature rises, blood vessels near the skin dilate, sweating increases, and heat is released efficiently. In older bodies, this response is slower and less complete. The blood vessels do not dilate as readily. Sweating begins later and may be less profuse. The result is that heat can build up internally, sometimes to uncomfortable or even dangerous levels. This is why sleeping through the night becomes more challenging for many older adults. The body's ability to shed heat during sleep diminishes, and subtle rises in core temperature can cause wakefulness. Similar changes occur in the body's handling of blood sugar. After a meal, the pancreas releases insulin, which signals cells to take up glucose from the bloodstream. In younger bodies, this process happens efficiently, and blood sugar returns to baseline within an hour or two. In older bodies, the cells become less responsive to insulin's signal. The pancreas must work harder to produce more insulin, and blood sugar remains elevated for longer periods. Over time, this pattern can lead to persistently elevated blood sugar and, eventually, to the diagnosis of diabetes. The accumulation of wear. Another way to understand aging is through the concept of accumulated wear. Every system of the body is subject to constant use, and over decades, this use leaves traces. Joints that have bent and straightened millions of times show changes in the cartilage that cushions them. Blood vessels that have pulsed with each heartbeat for 50 or 60 years gradually lose some of their elasticity. The lenses of the eyes, which have focused on near and distant objects countless times, become less flexible. This accumulation of wear is not inherently pathological. It is simply the natural consequence of having a body that has been used for a long time. Some individuals will experience more wear than others, depending on genetics, occupation, injuries, and countless other factors, but some degree of change is universal. The knees of an 80-year-old, even one who has never had a significant injury, will not look the same on an X-ray as the knees of a 20-year-old. Changes in composition. The body's composition changes with age in predictable ways. Muscle mass tends to decline gradually, a process that becomes more noticeable after age 50. This loss of muscle, if significant, affects strength, balance, and metabolic rate. Bone density also decreases, particularly in women after menopause, though men experience bone loss as well, just more slowly. Fat tissue redistributes with age. Subcutaneous fat, the fat just under the skin, tends to decrease, while fat within the abdomen and around internal organs tends to increase. This shift matters because abdominal fat is metabolically more active and is associated with greater inflammation and higher risk for various health conditions. Fluid balance also changes. The proportion of the body composed of water decreases with age, which means that dehydration can occur more easily. The thirst sensation becomes less acute, so older adults may not feel thirsty even when their fluid levels are dropping. This is why maintaining adequate hydration becomes increasingly important and also increasingly challenging in the later decades. The cellular perspective. At the cellular level, aging involves changes in how cells function and replicate. Each time a cell divides, the protective caps on the ends of chromosomes, called telomeres, become slightly shorter. When telomeres become too short, the cell can no longer divide and become senescent. It remains in the body but no longer performs its functions as effectively. Senescent cells accumulate with age and release inflammatory signals that affect surrounding tissues. Cells also become less efficient at cleaning up damaged proteins and other cellular debris. This housekeeping function, which is robust in youth, slows with age. The accumulation of cellular waste interferes with normal cellular function and contributes to the gradual decline in tissue performance. Mitochondria, the energy-producing structures within cells, become fewer and less efficient with age. This means that cells have less energy available for their various tasks. Tissues that have high energy demands, such as muscles and the brain, are particularly affected by this decline in mitochondrial function. The individuality of aging. All of these changes are universal in the sense that they occur in everyone, but they occur at different rates and to different degrees in different individuals. Some 70-year-olds have the cellular function and physical capacity of 50-year-olds. Some 50-year-olds show changes more typical of individuals a decade older. Genetics plays a role in this variability, but so do lifestyle, environment, and chance. This individuality is important to remember when considering any approach to aging well. There is no single path that works for everyone. What is possible for one person may not be possible for another, given differences in health status, resources, and circumstances. The goal is not to achieve some idealized version of aging, but to support one's own body in functioning as well as it can, given its particular history and tendencies. Part 2. The role of movement. Among all the factors that influence how people age, movement may be the most powerful and the most accessible. The human body is designed for motion, and when it stops moving, nearly every system begins to decline more rapidly. Conversely, regular movement, of the right types and in the right amounts, supports function across all the body's systems. Movement is signal. It is useful to think of movement not just as a way to burn calories or strengthen muscles, but as a signal to the body. When a person moves, they are sending a message to their tissues. We are still active. We still need to be capable. We still require the infrastructure for motion. Consider what happens to bone when a person is active. Weight-bearing movement creates mechanical stress on bones, and bone cells respond to this stress by becoming more active in maintaining and strengthening the bone structure. The body essentially says, this bone is bearing weight regularly, so we need to keep it strong. When a person is sedentary, the opposite signal is sent. This bone is not being stressed, so we can afford to let some of its density go. The same principle applies to muscle. Muscle tissue is metabolically expensive for the body to maintain. It requires energy and resources. The body will only maintain muscle if it receives regular signals that muscle is needed. Without those signals, without regular resistance and effort, muscle mass will gradually be lost. This is not a failure of the body, but a rational allocation of resources. Why maintain tissue that is not being used? This signaling effect extends to many other systems as well. Regular movement supports the health of blood vessels by encouraging them to dilate and contract in response to changing demands. It supports the function of mitochondria, the energy producers within cells, by creating demand for energy. It supports the regulation of blood sugar by making cells more responsive to insulin. It supports the nervous system by requiring coordination and balance. Movement is not just an activity. It is a form of communication with every cell and system in the body. Types of movement that matter. Different types of movement send different signals. And a complete approach to movement in the later decades includes several distinct categories. Weight-bearing movement is essential for bone health. This includes any activity that requires the body to work against gravity. Walking is weight-bearing, so are climbing stairs, dancing, hiking, and many forms of daily activity. The key is that the skeleton is supporting the body's weight, which provides the mechanical stimulus that maintains bone density. Resistance movement is important for muscle maintenance. This involves working the muscles against some form of resistance, which can come from weights, resistance bands, or simply the body's own weight. Squats, lunges, push-ups, and similar exercises tell the body that muscle strength is still needed. The specific form of resistance matters less than the consistent application of effort. Balance and coordination movement becomes increasingly important with age. The systems that maintain balance, the inner ear, the visual system, the proprioceptive system that senses where the body is in space, all decline gradually with age unless they are regularly challenged. Activities that require balance, such as Tai Chi, yoga, or simply standing on one foot while brushing teeth, help maintain these systems. Mobility and flexibility movement supports the range of motion in joints. As people age, connective tissues can become less pliable, and joints can lose some of their normal range if not moved through their full arc regularly. Gentle stretching and moving joints through their full range helps maintain the ability to perform daily activities comfortably. The particular importance of walking. Walking deserves special attention because it is the most fundamental and accessible form of movement. It requires no special equipment, no gym membership, no particular skill. It can be done almost anywhere, at almost any time, and at any pace that suits the individual. Research has consistently linked walking with better health outcomes in older adults. Studies following large groups of people over many years have found that those who walk more tend to live longer and experience less disability. The relationship appears to be dose-dependent. More walking is associated with greater benefits. Up to a point. The benefits are not limited to longevity. Walkers also tend to have better cardiovascular health, better blood sugar control, better mood, and better cognitive function. The mechanisms behind these benefits are numerous. Walking improves circulation. It helps regulate blood sugar by increasing the muscle's uptake of glucose. It supports joint health by moving fluid through the joints and maintaining the health of cartilage. It stimulates the release of compounds that support the growth of new brain cells and the connections between them. It provides exposure to outdoor light, which helps regulate sleep-wake cycles. It offers opportunities for social connection when done with others. It provides time for reflection and mental processing. For those who have been sedentary, starting with short walks and gradually increasing duration is a sensible approach. For those who already walk regularly, varying the terrain, the pace, or the distance can provide additional challenges. The key is consistency, walking most days, in whatever form is sustainable, rather than occasional intense efforts followed by long periods of inactivity. Movement in daily life. One of the most effective approaches to maintaining movement is to integrate it into daily life rather than treating it as a separate activity that must be scheduled. This is sometimes called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, a technical term for all the movement that is not formal exercise. It includes walking to the store, gardening, cleaning the house, taking the stairs, parking farther from the entrance, and countless other small movements that accumulate throughout the day. This kind of movement is particularly valuable because it is sustainable and because it distributes activity throughout the day rather than concentrating it into a single period. The body responds to this constant low-level activity by maintaining the systems that support movement. The person who moves frequently throughout the day is sending continuous signals to their body that movement is still required. There is also value in simply reducing the amount of time spent sitting. Prolonged sitting, even for those who exercise regularly, is associated with poorer health outcomes. The body appears to interpret long periods of sitting as a signal that movement is not needed, and it begins to make metabolic adjustments accordingly, breaking up sitting time with brief periods of standing or walking, even for just a minute or two each hour, helps counteract this effect. Part 3. Metabolic health and energy regulation. The way the body handles energy, how it processes food, stores excess, and releases stored energy when needed, is central to how it ages. Metabolic health, though the term sounds technical, simply refers to how well these energy systems are functioning. When they function well, the body maintains stable energy levels, appropriate body composition, and low levels of inflammation. When they function poorly, a cascade of problems can follow. Blood sugar and its regulation. At the center of metabolic health is the regulation of blood sugar. Glucose is the primary fuel for most cells, particularly brain cells. It must be present in the bloodstream at all times. But too much glucose is damaging to tissues. The body therefore maintains blood sugar within a relatively narrow range through the actions of insulin and other hormones. After a meal, carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, which enters the bloodstream. Rising blood sugar triggers the release of insulin from the pancreas. Insulin signals cells to take up glucose from the blood, either to use immediately for energy or to store for later use. In muscle and liver cells, glucose is stored as glycogen. In fat cells, it is stored as fat. As cells take up glucose, blood sugar levels return to normal. This system works efficiently in younger bodies, but becomes less precise with age. Cells become less responsive to insulin's signal, a condition called insulin resistance. The pancreas must produce more insulin to achieve the same effect. Blood sugar stays elevated longer after meals. Over time, the pancreas may struggle to keep up with the increased demand, and blood sugar levels may remain chronically elevated. Chronically elevated blood sugar damages tissues in several ways. Glucose molecules can attach to proteins and fats in a process called glycation, forming compounds that interfere with normal function. This is one reason why high blood sugar is associated with damage to small blood vessels, which affects the eyes, kidneys, and nerves. High blood sugar also promotes inflammation and oxidative stress, which accelerate aging processes throughout the body. Supporting healthy blood sugar regulation. Several approaches can support the body's ability to regulate blood sugar effectively. The composition of meals matters. Meals that include protein, fiber, and healthy fat tend to produce a slower, more gradual rise in blood sugar than meals consisting primarily of refined carbohydrates. Protein and fat slow the emptying of the stomach and the absorption of glucose, leading to a gentler insulin response. The order in which foods are eaten may also matter. Some research suggests that eating vegetables and protein before carbohydrates can reduce the blood sugar spike after a meal. The fiber and protein appear to prepare the digestive system in a way that slows glucose absorption. Physical activity has a profound effect on blood sugar regulation. Contracting muscles take up glucose from the blood without requiring insulin, effectively giving the blood sugar a place to go. This is why blood sugar often drops during and after exercise. Regular physical activity also improves insulin sensitivity over time, making cells more responsive to insulin's signal. Body composition influences blood sugar regulation as well. Excess fat, particularly around the abdomen, releases inflammatory compounds that interfere with insulin signaling. Reducing excess abdominal fat through a combination of dietary changes and increased activity often improves blood sugar control significantly. The role of inflammation. Inflammation is a normal and necessary part of the body's defense system. When tissues are injured or infected, the immune system mounts an inflammatory response that helps contain damage and promote healing. This acute inflammation is temporary and resolves once the threat has passed. Chronic inflammation is different. It is a low-level, persistent inflammatory state that can last for months or years. It does not have the obvious signs of acute inflammation, redness, swelling, heat, but it quietly damages tissues over time. Chronic inflammation is associated with nearly every condition that becomes more common with age, including heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, and cognitive decline. Several factors can contribute to chronic inflammation. Poor blood sugar control promotes inflammation. Excess body fat, particularly abdominal fat, releases inflammatory compounds. Certain dietary patterns, especially those high in refined carbohydrates and processed foods, tend to be pro-inflammatory. Lack of physical activity, poor sleep, and chronic stress also contribute to inflammatory processes. Conversely, certain dietary patterns tend to be anti-inflammatory. Diets rich in vegetables, fruits, Whole grains, nuts, seeds, and healthy fats from sources like fish and olive oil are associated with lower levels of inflammatory markers. These patterns provide antioxidants that neutralize some of the oxidative stress that drives inflammation, and they provide compounds that directly modulate inflammatory pathways. The traditional Mediterranean eating pattern is one well-studied example of an anti-inflammatory approach. It emphasizes plant foods, includes fish regularly, uses olive oil as the primary fat, and includes moderate amounts of fermented dairy. Populations following this pattern have been observed to have lower rates of many age-related conditions and longer average lifespans. Energy sensing pathways. At the cellular level, the body has sophisticated systems for sensing energy availability and adjusting metabolism accordingly. These pathways evolved in environments where food was not always available, and they are designed to promote survival during periods of scarcity. They respond not only to how much energy is available, but also to when it is available. One such pathway involves a family of proteins called sirtuins. These proteins are activated when energy is scarce, during periods of fasting or calorie restriction, and they orchestrate a cellular response that includes increased stress resistance, improved DNA repair, and enhanced mitochondrial function. Sirtuins effectively tell the cell, energy is limited, so we need to be efficient and protect what we have. Another pathway involves a protein called AMPK, which is activated when cellular energy levels are low. AMPK switches on processes that generate energy and switches off processes that consume energy for growth and storage. Like the sirtuins, the AMPK promotes cellular maintenance and stress resistance. What is interesting about these pathways is that they are activated not by abundance, but by scarcity. They are the body's way of responding to challenge, and they promote resilience and repair. This is one reason why periods of not eating, whether overnight fasts or longer periods, may have beneficial effects on health. During these periods, with no incoming food, cells shift into a maintenance mode, cleaning up damaged components and optimizing function. Part 4. The changing landscape of hormones. Hormones are the body's chemical messengers, traveling through the bloodstream to coordinate activity across different organs and systems. They regulate growth, metabolism, reproduction, mood, and countless other functions. With age, the levels of many hormones change, and the body's sensitivity to hormones can also change. Understanding these shifts helps make sense of many age-related changes. The menopause transition. For women, the most significant hormonal transition of midlife is menopause. This is not a single event, but a process that typically unfolds over several years, usually beginning in the mid to late 40s and completing around age 50 or 51. During this transition, the ovaries gradually produce less estrogen and progesterone, and menstrual periods become irregular before eventually stopping. The declining levels of these hormones affect many systems of the body. Estrogen has receptors not only in reproductive tissues, but also in bone, brain, blood vessels, and skin. When estrogen levels drop, these tissues are affected. The hot flashes that many women experience during this transition are related to estrogen's role in temperature regulation. Estrogen helps the hypothalamus, the brain's thermostat, function properly. When estrogen levels fluctuate and then drop, the hypothalamus becomes more sensitive to small changes in body temperature. It may trigger heat loss mechanisms, widening of blood vessels near the skin, and sweating when no actual overheating has occurred. This is experienced as a sudden wave of heat, often followed by chills as the body overshoots in the other direction. Sleep disturbances during the menopausal transition have multiple causes. Hot flashes can disrupt sleep directly. Changing hormone levels also affect the brain's sleep-wake regulation, and the life circumstances that often coincide with this stage. Career pressures. Caring for aging parents, children leaving home, can contribute to stress that interferes with sleep. Bone density declines more rapidly after menopause because estrogen helps maintain the balance between bone breakdown and bone formation. Without estrogen, bone breakdown outpaces formation, and density decreases. This is why osteoporosis becomes more common in postmenopausal women. Supporting bone health during and after this transition involves ensuring adequate intake of the nutrients that bones need: calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin K, and providing the mechanical stimulus that bones need through weight-bearing activity. The andropause transition. For men, hormonal changes are more gradual but still significant. Testosterone levels typically decline slowly from around age 30, but the decline becomes more noticeable for many men in their 50s and 60s. This gradual decline is sometimes called andropause, though it is not as dramatic or as universal as the menopausal transition in women. Testosterone affects muscle mass, bone density, fat distribution, red blood cell production, mood, and libido. As levels decline, men may notice changes in these areas. Muscle may be harder to maintain. Energy levels may decrease. Recovery from physical activity may take longer. Some men experience changes in mood or motivation. The rate and extent of testosterone decline vary considerably among individuals. Genetics plays a role, but so do lifestyle factors. Physical activity, particularly resistance training, supports healthy testosterone levels. So does maintaining a healthy body composition, as excess body fat is associated with lower testosterone. Adequate sleep is also important, as most testosterone production occurs during sleep. Certain nutrients support the body's testosterone production. Zinc is particularly important. It is required for testosterone synthesis, and deficiency is associated with low levels. Vitamin D also plays a role, and levels tend to correlate with testosterone. Healthy fats are needed because cholesterol is the precursor from which testosterone is made. Thyroid function and metabolism. The thyroid gland produces hormones that regulate the body's metabolic rate, how quickly cells burn energy for fuel. Thyroid function often changes with age, and thyroid disorders become more common in the later decades. Hypothyroidism, an underactive thyroid, can cause fatigue, weight gain, cold intolerance, dry skin, and mental sluggishness. These symptoms can be mistaken for normal aging, which is why thyroid testing is important when such symptoms appear. Treatment with thyroid hormone replacement is straightforward and can dramatically improve quality of life. Hyperthyroidism, an overactive thyroid, causes the opposite symptoms: weight loss despite normal eating, heat intolerance, rapid heartbeat, anxiety, and difficulty sleeping. It is less common than hypothyroidism, but still occurs with some frequency in older adults. Even when thyroid function remains within the normal range, the body's sensitivity to thyroid hormones may change with age. Some researchers have observed that the optimal thyroid hormone levels for older adults may be different from those for younger adults, though this is still an area of investigation. The adrenal system and stress response. The adrenal glands produce hormones that help the body respond to stress. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, follows a daily rhythm, highest in the morning to promote wakefulness, lowest at night to allow sleep. Cortisol also rises in response to acute stressors, mobilizing energy and sharpening focus. With chronic stress, this system can become dysregulated. Cortisol may remain elevated when it should be low, or the daily rhythm may flatten. Chronic cortisol elevation is associated with numerous negative health effects, including impaired immune function, increased abdominal fat deposition, muscle breakdown, and interference with memory and cognition. The relationship between stress hormones and other hormonal systems is complex. High cortisol can suppress testosterone production and interfere with thyroid function. It can also affect blood sugar regulation by promoting insulin resistance. Managing the stress response is therefore an important component of hormonal health. This does not mean eliminating stress, which is neither possible nor desirable. It means supporting the body's ability to return to baseline after stress, to recover, and to maintain the daily rhythms that support healthy function. Part 5. The architecture of rest. Sleep is not merely a period of inactivity. It is an active, dynamic state during which the body performs essential maintenance and the brain processes the experiences of the day. The architecture of sleep, its structure, its stages, its rhythms, changes with age. And understanding these changes helps in supporting good sleep in the later decades. The changing shape of sleep. Young adults typically fall asleep easily, sleep deeply through the night, and wake feeling refreshed. Their sleep includes substantial amounts of deep sleep, the stage during which the body performs much of its physical restoration, and REM sleep, the stage associated with dreaming and memory consolidation. With age, the shape of sleep changes. Deep sleep decreases, sometimes substantially. Sleep becomes lighter and more easily disrupted. The ability to maintain continuous sleep through the night diminishes. Many older adults find themselves waking in the early morning hours and being unable to return to sleep. These changes are partly driven by alterations in the brain's sleep-regulating systems. The circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs sleep-wake cycles, tends to shift earlier with age. This is why many older adults feel sleepy earlier in the evening and wake earlier in the morning. The rhythm can also become less robust, with smaller differences between day and night in terms of alertness and sleepiness. The temperature connection. Body temperature plays a crucial role in sleep regulation. For sleep to occur, core body temperature must drop by about 1 to 2 degrees. This drop is part of the body's natural preparation for sleep, and it typically begins in the evening as melatonin rises. In older adults, this temperature drop may be less pronounced or may occur at the wrong time. The body's ability to shed heat diminishes with age, as blood vessels near the skin do not dilate as readily and sweating begins later. If core temperature remains elevated, falling asleep becomes more difficult. If temperature rises during the night, as can happen with hot flashes or simply with inadequate heat dissipation, wakefulness can occur. This is why the sleeping environment matters so much. A cool room supports the body's natural temperature drop. So do lightweight bedding that allows heat to escape and sleep clothing that does not trap heat. Some people find that a warm bath or shower before bed, though counterintuitive, actually helps. The subsequent cooling as the body loses heat through dilated blood vessels can promote sleepiness. Light and the circadian rhythm. Light is the primary signal that synchronizes the circadian rhythm with the external world. Bright light in the morning tells the internal clock that the day has begun and helps set the timing of sleep for the coming night. Light in the evening, particularly the blue light emitted by screens, can delay the circadian rhythm and suppress melatonin, making it harder to fall asleep. For older adults, ensuring adequate bright light exposure during the day becomes particularly important. The circadian rhythm relies on this signal to maintain its timing, and without it, the rhythm can drift or become less robust. Morning light exposure, ideally outdoors, helps anchor the rhythm and promotes earlier sleep onset at night. Evening light exposure should be minimized, or the light should be warm and dim. Many people find that establishing a routine of dim lighting in the hours before bed, along with avoiding screens, supports better sleep. This is not about strict rules, but about creating conditions that allow the body's natural sleep processes to unfold. Sleep and physical restoration. During deep sleep, the body performs much of its physical maintenance. Growth hormone is released, stimulating tissue repair and muscle growth. Cells increase their production of proteins needed for various functions. The immune system becomes more active, identifying and addressing potential threats. When deep sleep is reduced, as it often is in older adults, these restorative processes are diminished. This is one reason why recovery from injury or illness may take longer with age. It is also one reason why sleep quality is associated with immune function. People who sleep poorly are more susceptible to infections and may take longer to recover. Supporting deep sleep involves many of the factors already discussed. A cool sleeping environment, regular sleep and wake times, adequate daytime light exposure, and management of any conditions that cause nighttime awakenings. Physical activity during the day also promotes deep sleep, as the body's need for physical restoration increases with activity. Sleep and cognitive processing, REM sleep, the stage associated with dreaming, serves different functions than deep sleep. During REM, the brain processes emotional experiences and consolidates memories. It integrates new information with existing knowledge and makes connections that support learning and problem solving. REM sleep tends to be preserved better with age than deep sleep, but it can still be affected. Sleep disruptions that cause frequent awakenings can fragment REM sleep, reducing its benefits. Certain medications can suppress REM sleep. Alcohol, while it may help with falling asleep initially, disrupts sleep architecture and reduces REM sleep later in the night. The cognitive benefits of good sleep extend beyond memory and learning. Sleep clears metabolic waste products from the brain, including compounds that accumulate during waking hours. This cleaning function, which occurs primarily during sleep, is essential for maintaining brain health over the long term. Part 6. Nutrition as foundation. Food provides the raw materials from which the body builds and maintains itself. Every cell, every tissue, every system depends on the nutrients that come from food. Over a lifetime, the cumulative effect of dietary patterns shapes how the body ages. Protein and the maintenance of structure. Protein is fundamental to the body's structure and function. Muscles, bones, skin, hair, nails, enzymes, hormones, and immune cells are all built from protein. The body constantly breaks down and rebuilds these structures, requiring a steady supply of amino acids, the building blocks of protein. With age, the body becomes less efficient at using dietary protein. More protein may be needed to achieve the same effect. This phenomenon, sometimes called anabolic resistance, means that older adults may need higher protein intakes than younger adults to maintain muscle and other tissues. Spreading protein intake throughout the day appears to be more effective than consuming most protein in a single meal. Each meal that contains adequate protein provides a signal for muscle protein synthesis to occur. When protein intake is concentrated in one meal, the signal is strong but brief, and muscle may go long periods without stimulation for maintenance. The type of protein also matters. Proteins that contain all the essential amino acids in adequate amounts, complete proteins, are more effective at stimulating muscle protein synthesis. Animal sources such as meat, fish, eggs, and dairy are complete proteins. Plant sources can be combined to provide all essential amino acids, but the amounts needed may be larger due to differences in digestibility and amino acid profiles. Fats and cellular function. Fats have been viewed with suspicion in the past, but they are essential for health. Cell membranes are made largely of fats, and their fluidity and function depend on the types of fats they contain. The brain is particularly rich in fats, and its structure and function are influenced by dietary fat composition. Different types of fats have different effects on the body. Saturated fats. found in animal products and some tropical oils, are stable and resist oxidation but may contribute to inflammation when consumed in excess. Unsaturated fats, found in plant oils, nuts, seeds, and fish, are more fluid and tend to have anti-inflammatory effects when they come from whole food sources. Omega-3 fatty acids deserve special attention because they are both essential and often underconsumed. These fats are incorporated into cell membranes throughout the body, where they influence membrane fluidity and the function of membrane proteins. They are particularly concentrated in the brain and retina. They also serve as precursors for compounds that help resolve inflammation. The main dietary sources of omega-3s are fatty fish such as salmon, mackerel, and sardines. Flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts provide a different type of omega-3 that the body can convert to the more active forms, though conversion efficiency is limited. For those who do not eat fish regularly, supplements can provide these fats in concentrated form. Carbohydrates and energy. Carbohydrates are the body's preferred source of quick energy. They are broken down into glucose, which fuels cells throughout the body. The brain is particularly dependent on glucose, consuming about 20% of the body's energy despite being only 2% of its weight. Not all carbohydrates are equal in their effects on the body. Whole carbohydrates that come with fiber, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, are digested slowly and produce a gradual rise in blood sugar. Refined carbohydrates, white flour, white rice, sugar. Most processed foods are digested quickly and can cause rapid spikes in blood sugar followed by rapid drops. The fiber that comes with whole carbohydrates has benefits beyond slowing digestion. Fiber feeds beneficial bacteria in the gut, which produce compounds that support immune function and reduce inflammation. Fiber also binds to cholesterol and helps remove it from the body. It adds bulk to stool and promotes regular bowel movements. Most adults consume far less fiber than is optimal for health. Micronutrients and their roles. Vitamins and minerals are required in smaller amounts than protein, fat, and carbohydrates, but they are no less essential. They serve as cofactors for enzymes, allowing chemical reactions to occur. They are incorporated into structures throughout the body. They help regulate countless physiological processes. With age, the body's ability to absorb and utilize certain micronutrients can decline. Stomach acid production often decreases, which reduces the absorption of vitamin B12, which requires acid for release from food. The skin's ability to produce vitamin D from sunlight diminishes. Kidney function may decline, affecting the activation of vitamin D. Certain micronutrients deserve particular attention in the later decades. Vitamin D supports calcium absorption and bone health. It also plays roles in immune function, muscle function, and mood regulation. Many older adults have low vitamin D levels, particularly those in northern climates or those who spend little time outdoors. Calcium is essential for bones, but it also plays roles in muscle contraction, nerve transmission, and blood clotting. The body maintains blood calcium levels within a narrow range, drawing on bone stores when dietary intake is insufficient. Over time, this can deplete bone density. Magnesium is involved in hundreds of enzymatic reactions. It supports muscle and nerve function, blood sugar regulation, blood pressure control, and protein synthesis. It also plays a role in sleep regulation. Many adults consume less magnesium than is optimal, and certain medications can deplete magnesium levels. Vitamin B12 is essential for nerve function and the formation of red blood cells. Deficiency can cause fatigue, cognitive changes, and nerve damage. Because absorption declines with age and with the use of certain medications, B12 status should be monitored in older adults. Potassium supports blood pressure regulation, nerve transmission, and muscle function. It is abundant in vegetables and fruits, but many adults consume far less than the recommended amounts. Increasing potassium intake through dietary sources is associated with better cardiovascular health. Hydration and fluid balance. Water is the medium in which all life processes occur. It transports nutrients, removes waste, cushions joints, and regulates temperature. The body's water content decreases with age, and the sense of thirst becomes less acute, making dehydration more common. Mild dehydration can cause fatigue, headache, constipation, and difficulty concentrating. More significant dehydration can have serious consequences, particularly in older adults. Maintaining adequate fluid intake throughout the day is essential, and relying on thirst alone may not be sufficient. Water is the ideal source of hydration, but other fluids contribute as well. Foods with high water content, vegetables, fruits, soups also provide fluid. Caffeinated beverages are not as dehydrating as once thought, though they do have mild diuretic effects. Alcohol can interfere with hydration and should be consumed in moderation, if at all. Part 7. The digestive system and nutrient assimilation. The digestive system is the gateway through which all nutrients must pass. Its function determines not only how well nutrients are absorbed, but also how comfortable the process of eating and digestion is. With age, changes in the digestive system can affect nutrition and quality of life. Changes in digestive function. The digestive system changes with age in ways that affect its function. The muscles of the digestive tract may contract less forcefully, slowing the movement of food through the system. The stomach produces less acid, which can affect the breakdown of food and the absorption of certain nutrients. The lining of the digestive tract may become more permeable or less efficient at absorbing nutrients. These changes can contribute to common digestive complaints in older adults. Constipation becomes more common as movement through the colon slows. Acid reflux may occur as the valve between the stomach and esophagus becomes less competent. Bloating and discomfort after meals may result from slower digestion or changes in the gut microbiome. The gut microbiome. The gut is home to trillions of bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms that collectively form the gut microbiome. These organisms play essential roles in digestion, producing enzymes that break down compounds the human body cannot. They produce vitamins, including B vitamins and vitamin K. They train the immune system, helping it distinguish between friends and foes. They produce compounds that influence inflammation, metabolism, and even brain function. With age, the composition of the gut microbiome tends to change. Diversity often decreases, and the balance between different types of organisms may shift. These changes are associated with increased inflammation and may contribute to various age-related conditions. Diet strongly influences the gut microbiome. Fiber from plant foods feeds beneficial bacteria, which ferment it into compounds that support gut health and reduce inflammation. Diverse plant intake supports diverse bacterial populations. Fermented foods, yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, provide live bacteria that can temporarily increase the populations of beneficial species. Antibiotics, while sometimes necessary, can dramatically alter the gut microbiome, reducing diversity and allowing potentially harmful bacteria to proliferate. Recovery from antibiotics can take months, and in some cases, the microbiome may not fully return to its previous state. Supporting the microbiome during and after antibiotic use, through diet and possibly probiotics, can aid recovery. The central insight, the one that holds all the others together, is this: Growing older is not a problem to be solved, but a process to be understood. The body in its 50s and beyond is not a younger body in decline. It is a different body altogether, with different needs, different strengths, and a different relationship to time. When we understand this, when we stop comparing ourselves to who we were at 30 and start learning who we are at 60 or 70 or 80, the entire experience shifts. The questions become more interesting. The answers become more personal. And the journey becomes less about holding on to what was and more about discovering what is possible now. We would be honored to hear what you are discovering on your own path. The comments below are a place for reflection, for sharing what has resonated, for adding your voice to this ongoing conversation about what it means to live well through all the decades. If this archive of wisdom has been valuable to you, there are other recordings here, other explorations of the territory we all navigate sooner or later. Subscribe if you would like to receive them as they appear. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.